Hey there guys, in this video I'm going to be giving some tips for the final magical fight of the current Dark Visions. Now this one is a little trickier because it's an undead boss, meaning you cannot use the re-raise trick. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to show you the first few turns of the boss, and that way you can build your own team to get a cap. So you have to use magical or evocation damage for this boss. It's only weak to ice or dark. Now you can of course go off element if you've got a strong mage. Like for example, Genesis should easily be able to overcap this by a huge amount. But I'm going to be going in here with kind of a goofy team. You're not intended to copy this team as is. I'm just taking a relatively weak team to show you an example of what the boss does. So we're going to kill it on turn 3. So on turn 1 of the boss is going to do an AoE fire attack, a single target stat break, and then he's going to give himself a few Nethicite stacks. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and on turn 1 just imperil the boss. That's because we're going to be chaining with Blue Wave on the kill turn, and the boss is naturally immune to water, but with an imperil, the water resist is lowered enough to actually chain. So we're going to use Louise to break the boss. We're going to use Fire Foam. This is an AoE fire absorption. Now, if you don't want to get fancy and do it this way, you can either use a magical cover tank with fire resist or just buff your party's fire resist to 100%. But we're going to use Fire Foam just because we can. Then we're going to use Fire Starter. Now the reason for this is for the weakness damage, and that's because I'm using a goofy team. So we're going to use this to imbue the party with fire element, and we imperiled fire with Incapacitate, and then we'll just hit the boss. Now we're going to use Choo Choo and Odagiri to just punch the enemy a few times. This is just to get the weakness score out of the way. We are now finished the weakness score. So Dark Rain is going to go ahead and start setting up. We're going to do his cooldown. We're going to do his LB damage buff, and we're going to imperil the boss to darkness with Dark Suppression. So like I said, turn 1 is just an AoE magical fire attack. We're going to absorb it, a single target stat break, and then the boss gains 3 stack of Nethicite. So the next 3 regular magic spells would fail, but we're not going to use magic anyway. So on this turn, we're going to go ahead and give a killer buff to our Dark Rain using Ihana's STMR. And again, if you don't have this, bring an actual killer buff. Dark Rain, now this turn, the boss is going to do 4 AoE physical attacks. You can either, 4 times mirage it, evade your party, or you can use a cover tank, or you can imbue the boss, or you can just bulk up and take it and break the boss, etc. We're going to be evading it. So the whole party except for Rain is using evasion. The rest of the party is good to go, so we can just go ahead and just punch the enemy, whatever. Rain is going to quad. We're going to use his 150 Amplify, Chaotic Mirage for a 5-stack Mirage on himself, and then double focus. And the boss also does single target death. So make sure your provoker is death immune, and our Louise is provoking with death immunity. And now we're going to kill the boss. Now if we didn't kill the boss this turn, the boss would do more AoE physical, more AoE fire, some AoE non-elemental magic, as well as an AoE dispel. So if you can, you really want to kill by turn 3 to not deal with all that headache. So we're going to go ahead and use the SLB of Rain. Unai will Blue Wave, Odagiri, Blue Wave, Choo Choo will Blue Wave, and Louise will Blue Wave. And that's because that's a magical attack, and it will not be immune. The boss does still have 3 stacks of Nethicite. Does he absorb the magic? Keep that in mind. So if you're trying to chain with actual black magic, it will fail unless you have dispelled that previously or consumed the Nethicite on a previous turn. But Blue Wave is not considered a magic spell, even though it's a magic attack, so it'll be fine. So we go ahead and send Rain, we chain our Blue Wavers, and all 4 Blue Waves will give us the 100 count chain score. And there's Rain dealing basically 8 billion damage. We only needed 4. So we double overcapped with 1 damage dealer. So there it is. Now, of course, Dark Rain is one of the better options here. If you don't have him, Ayaka is great as well. Those are the two probably best options because it's weak to fire and dark. Oh, Lady Shantoto, another great option. Obviously, you know, Rain did everything. But there it is. And I'll show you the gear real quick, but again, you're not supposed to copy this clear. That's just an example clear. So we just used a passive provoker with a death immunity, and we evaded the whole party and then blue wave. Choo Choo is just evasion with blue wave. Other than that, whatever. Yunai is evasion with blue wave, and we gave her the imperil spell so that blue wave would actually work because the boss does have 120 water resist by default. That brings it below 100, allowing us to actually chain. Otagiri is just using Mage Schism for Reaper Rune. If you don't have this, a regular Reaper Killer is fine. Other than that, evasion and then blue wave. And then Dark Rain is geared, you know, pretty well. Because this was an example clear. But he did double overcap, so if you can't gear this well, it's totally fine. You know, it'd be less damage, but as long as you're doing 4 billion, you're good. Okay, so there was just some quick tips on the Undead Sorcerer. So just going down the list real quickly. Dark Mages. We've got Dark Rain, Lady Shantoto, Olivera is actually probably a useful unit here. I can't think of any other Dark Mage off the top of my head. There's probably more. Lynx is another great one. Yeah, I can't think of any more actual mages. Ibarra is not a good option because she's pure physical. Ice mages options are Regina, Ayaka, Rydia would probably be good. The summoner Rydia. Maybe not because she's kind of terrible, but she might work. There's not a whole lot of good ice mages either, honestly. There's really not. And then, of course, you can go off element. You know, Genesis obviously will super overcap this, even though it's wrong element. Any other good mage would be fine here. Anyway, there's the quick tips. This video is probably way longer than it needed to be, but there you go. See you in a bit.